Stephen Jones was talking today. What was of note for you in terms of Stephen Jones's conversation with the media?
The biggest thing, I guess, is a continuation of something that we've heard from Mobile, Alabama, when we was at the Senior Bowl, is that they've been very positive about Ezekiel Elliott. And I think we all know that he's going to get cut or something. And I think the Cowboys value him so much that I think they really want to work it out with him so they can keep him. And which is a little surprising on my end. But that was the biggest thing, that they continue the positive vibes about Zeke. I think Steven also was, he was very honest about the wide receiving core. He was like, look, Jalen Tolbert did not play the way we thought he would, but they expect him to take that second-year jump, as Mike McCarthy likes to say. Other thing of note is they're going to probably franchise Tony Pollard. Now, he didn't say Tony Pollard, but they're going to use the tag on somebody, and it's probably going to be Pollard rather than Dalton Schultz again. So those are, to me, some of the big highlights, in addition to Mike McCarthy initiating the talks to say, I want to call the plays and that kind of thing.
Is this the right move for this team to have both Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott back, given what we've seen in the unfortunate decline of Zeke over the last several years, that this would be the best move for them going forward?
I think sometimes you just got to move on. And to me, I would just say I'm done with Zeke. Nothing personal, it's just business. And you got to let Zeke go and go with Tony Pollard. Last night, I was talking to someone when I was having a few cocktails, and they said, why don't the Cowboys just start all over at running back? And I said, what do you mean? And that individual was like, he's an agent. He was like, do you want to pay Pollard $10 million? Because that's what the franchise tag would be. And then you're not going to pay him in 2024. You're going to let him go, hit the market, because you're going to use his body all up. And then do you want to renegotiate Zeke's deal to get him to be basically a backup? Why not let both of those guys go and then draft somebody, whether it's someone in late in the first round, I think the Cowboys are at 26 in the first round, or get a running back in the second and third round. And you got Malik Davis. I was talking to someone in the organization about him. He was like a third running back last year. They said they really like him. So, in some ways, maybe you start all over at that position and just let everybody go. But if not, then you give Tony his $10 million and you work it out with Zeke and you go from there.
How realistic do you think running back is as an option in the first round? Because there's been a lot of talk about Bijan Robinson out of Texas, but outside of that, the value might not really be there in the first round. Do you think they would really go for it at 26 at the running back position?
Stephen Jones said they had about 18 players with first-round grades. So what are they at? 26, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Dallas?
Yeah.
So at 26, he was asked, would you want to draft a running back at 26? And he said that's probably an area where you could go get a running back in the lower half of the first round based on the value. Now, if there's a transitional player like Zeke was back in, 2016, and I think he was fourth overall, then, yeah, you go get him. Bijan Robinson might be that kind of generational player where you get him in the top 10. You know what I'm saying? But in the Cowboys instance, their feeling is, yeah, we'll draft a running back late in the first round. It would make sense, but not in the top 10, top 15, unless he's a transitional player. Get him in the second round. That makes sense. Get him in the third round. That makes sense. And if you're doing that, that means you're saying to Tony Pollard and Zeke Elliott, you will not be on our football team next year.
It's going to be interesting to see what this team does, Calvin, not just with the 26th overall pick, but going forward as well. If you are looking at this team and figuring out what they need to do this offseason, what's the priority, if you will, if you're going to see this team engage in free agency, which is something they don't typically do until the second and third weeks of free agency. But if they were, where are you going to engage in as far as this team's concerned?
There's been a constant word I've heard around here when it comes to what the Cowboys want to do, whether it's in the draft or whether it's in free agency. And if they want to find a player with some juice, they need another playmaker on offense. They need a guy who's fast, who just makes plays on the ball, gets yak yards, everything. That's what they're looking for. Now, can you get that in the draft? Of course you can, but you better draft right, and you better make sure that kid is ready to go at receiver. Somebody in front office was telling me last night, hey, you can get some juice at tight end. They mentioned, look at Travis Kelce over in Kansas City. You can get a guy in free agency. Is that Odell Beckham Jr.? The Cowboys are still interested in Odell Beckham Jr. Is he a guy that brings juice to the offense? I believe he can, but we got to see how that leg is. I wouldn't do it, but, it's not my money. It's Jerry's money. So the one thing they want to do is they want to find a dynamic playmaker on offense. Because as you guys know, when you watch that 49ers game, when Tony Pollard went out in the second quarter with that ankle, they either got fractured leg, they had nobody else other than CeeDee Lamb. And I think that was a wake-up call to the front office that said, we need more playmakers on offense. You know what I'm saying? And so I think this draft and this spring in free agency, they're going to find that. And I don't mean they're going to look for a T.Y. Hilton or Antonio Callaway. I'm talking about a dynamic player who can make plays, who can play 45, 50 snaps a game. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I think they're looking for.
Calvin Watkins of the Dallas Morning News here on 105.3 The Fan. Do you think that means that they're going to really be interested in the trade market? Do you think they're going to be having some conversations around maybe like a DeAndre Hopkins type? We've heard rumblings about Hunter Renfrow even out in Vegas. There's a few veteran receivers that might have some bigger price tags. Do you think a trade is going to be more likely? Because you did mention that the receiver value might not exactly be there, might not be exactly what they're looking for right now in terms of a day one impact. So could a trade be on the horizon for the Cowboys?
It's possible. I mean, they've done that before. Remember, that's how they got Amari Cooper. Mm-hmm. They made a trade. But when they got Cooper, they were desperate because they had nobody at receiver, if you remember. Now, but they have CeeDee Lamb, and they have, we think, Tony Pollard. The problem with the trade in the NFL, as you know, is you're taking on that other contract. So if you get DeAndre Hopkins, you're saying, well, damn, DeAndre Hopkins gets a nice chunk of money. Can we pay him, CeeDee Lamb, Tony Pollard, Dak Prescott, all these guys? You know what I'm saying? So that's the problem there. It's not fantasy football, it's economics. So if you can financially fit DeAndre Hopkins on your roster, that means somebody else is not going to be here. Ezekiel Elliott, maybe not even Tony Pollard, maybe not Dalton Schultz. So that's the problem with the trade, unless you work it out with DeAndre Hopkins. Hey, can you lower that cap number a little bit? And then maybe we'll see what happens. So I'm not opposed to them trying to make a trade. I don't think they are neither, but it has to make financial sense.
Calvin, what has been some of the buzz around Indianapolis? Obviously, a couple of days into the combine itself, and we know that this really becomes kind of the center of the NFL world for this week as players are working out and getting ready for the NFL draft. From this team standpoint, what are some things that maybe are buzzing around that you're going to be keeping your eye on, that you're able to divulge, if you will?
Everyone is interested to see if Dallas is going to draft a quarterback. And I think 4 quarterbacks might go in the first round. And they're gonna take care of Dak Prescott. They're gonna, as Stephen Jones said today, we can extend Dak when we get up in the morning. That's not a big deal to them. So the question is, where do you draft a quarterback to say, in case something happens to number 4, we got someone ready to go? So that's been the biggest buzz, is do the Cowboys draft a quarterback, and what quarterback is worth their time and money into? Because Mike McCarthy, as you know, he's taking over the offense. Mm-hmm. And this is year 4 of a 5-year deal. So if he doesn't get it done this year, then we're going to have another conversation. You know what I'm saying? And then you got this quarterback here, so now you're starting all over. So that, to me, has been one of the biggest buzz things about the Cowboys, is whether or not they'll draft a quarterback. And when you ask them, they say, yeah, we're open to it, but it has to make sense. And then they pointed out, hey, we got, the last quarterback they drafted was our boy, Ben DiNucci. And you go, well, he wasn't, and he was just a developmental guy, and he started with 1 game, and he was a disaster. Mm-hmm. As much as I love DiNucci, but, that's what it was. So that's been the biggest thing. Will they draft a QB? And I think they will if it makes sense, possibly on day 3.
What's a position group, Calvin, that you think maybe we're not talking about too much that the Cowboys might be keeping their eyes on this week at the Combine?
I think safety. They might lose Donovan Wilson in free agency. Cowboys don't pay safeties, and Donovan Wilson wants to get paid. And they're a little older there with Malik Hooker and Jaron Kearse. So Hooker and Kearse, I think they're here. Wilson might be gone. So they might have to draft a safety, a tall, long, lean safety to make plays on the ball, kind of like the way Donovan Wilson is doing, the way their defense is set up under Dan Quinn. So to me, don't be surprised if they get them a safety in round 2. I don't think there's a big-time safety in the first round that might be there at 26. I do think there's some corners that will be in the lower part of the first round. I really like Joey Porter Jr., as a matter of fact, at corner. And there's a lot of good corners in this draft. But to me, safety is the biggest issue there because of the fact that they could lose Donovan Wilson in free agency.
That would be a disappointing departure for the Cowboys if Donovan Wilson did move on, because he's obviously had, a very nice couple of years, especially playing for Dan Quinn. That would be a big loss for them in that secondary. Of course, the defensive back who led the NFL in sacks with 5 from the defensive back position this year. Calvin, before we let you go, what kind of shenanigans you and Clarence going to get into in Indianapolis this week?
Well, I'm about to go to the cigar lounge as soon as I hang up the phone with y'all and have a couple of cocktails. It's relaxing. Sitting on leather seats.
Okay.
Relax.
Okay. Steak of choice in Indy. I know you're a veteran of the scouting combine game, so your steak of choice in Indy.
I'm a T-bone guy. I like a good T-bone.
Okay.
T-bone guy. I've always been that way. I don't know why, but I like good T-bone steak.
Okay. And who serves the best one in Indy?
It's hard for me to say because I've got them with Chris. I've gone to Joe's, Prime 47. So I hate to diss a restaurant like that.
That's a good call, Calvin. I'm just going to name all of them. All respect to all of them. That's good stuff. Calvin, as always, my man, I appreciate the time you joining us this evening. Enjoy your time in Indianapolis, and we'll talk to you soon.
I'll see you guys soon. Maybe I'll see you at a baseball game or something. I need to go see some baseball.
Or one of these fights here soon at some point.
Mm-hmm.
One of these boxing matches at some point.
Yeah. What's the kid from Grand Prairie? He's fighting like the weekend of the draft, Ortiz.
Virgil Ortiz, yeah.
Yeah, and then I heard Spence, he's not going to fight until June. So he's going to fight, what's the boy, Keith Thurman.
Yeah, one-time Thurman. Let me tell you something real quick before I let you go. That cat has been a gatekeeper. One-time Thurman been a gatekeeper for a while in the welterweight division. And I'm tired of him sticking around here and getting these fights with, Manny Pacquiao, and now you're going to get one with Spence. I need Crawford and Spence. I'm tired of the games being played. I'm tired of it.
I don't think Crawford wants the fight because they could have had this fight. Because they gave Crawford everything he wanted, and then he was asking for stuff that fighters don't normally get. Like he wanted to, because Crawford doesn't have a personality. So, Spence does, but Crawford doesn't. I'm not saying that because Spence is from Dallas. It's true because whenever you're a fighter and you got questions about how much marketing you got to do, that's telling me that you really don't want the fight, A, and you don't want to sell the fight because you have to sell the fight. You have to promote. You got to go on a media tour, and that kind of thing. And Crawford's not good with the media. He's a fantastic fighter. He's a brilliant fighter. But to make fights, you got to sell the fight. You got to get out there. And when I heard all this stuff, I was like, I want to see. I want to approve all the expenses for the marketing. Why do you care? Just get your butt in the ring and fight. That's what we pay you for. Okay, let someone else worry about that. It's like me worrying about the guys who are printing the paper out. That's not my department.
He said, I'm out here to write these columns, get this information, and then y'all handle the business after that.
Right. That's none of my business how y'all get it out. The guys who get them trucks on, I'm very appreciative of y'all, but that's not my lane. I stay in my lane.
Calvin, appreciate the time, my man. You have a good one.
All right, guys. Thank you.